3,850 meters, the mountain has stirred the imagination and courage of man for centuries. Hundreds have died trying to climb to its summit, and now a city slicker with a borrowed sleeping bag but a lot of heart is about to attempt to trek to its third base camp. This is the Everest Podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 21 of the Everest Podcast. My name is Erick, and I am now in a little town called Shigar. This is the first day after our sort of week and a half of trekking Everest. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast series over the past 2 weeks, thanks for continuing to listen. Even though the trek is over, our adventure continues onwards. I actually have another almost 2 weeks remaining in this entire itinerary. That will take, a week and a half. The itinerary will take us through some of the smaller towns between the Everest Valley and Lhasa, as well as the second largest city in Tibet called Shigatse. And along the way, as well as in Lhasa, we will be seeing a fair number of really large ancient monasteries, as well as the traditional home of the Panchen Lama and, of course, the Dalai Lama in Lhasa. So lots of things to talk about and to continue to podcast about. So for those of you who have been listening in and who have been entertained by this podcast so far, I welcome you to continue listening in. I'll continue to make these podcasts, I'm guessing, all the way through Lhasa and maybe even Kathmandu for the next 2 weeks. So anyway, as those of you know, yesterday was the last day of our Everest trek, and today we sadly had to bid farewell to the Everest Valley and head out and continue on our adventure north from Everest, from the Himalayan range, towards Lhasa. Today was pretty much just a day of driving, and before I go any further, the word of the day is hot shower. Hot shower. Pretty self-explanatory, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, this should be a relatively short podcast today. We spent most of the day on the road, driving through some amazing valleys sandwiched between these multicolored valley walls of ancient rock and clay and high altitude shrubs. But in the valley floor, throughout the trip, we saw a whole array of different these Tibetan villages that are just surrounded by these rolling barley fields. And everywhere you drive, you see the Tibetans working in their barley fields and doing what they do. And it's just a beautiful sight because you have this almost infinite perspective of these valleys, and just the multicolor of the sort of the yellow green barley in contrast against the dark gray reddish rock, in contrast against like the low green shrubs and the sun shining down. It's really truly beautiful, and actually very different from the last 8-9 days we've spent in Everest, where we've been looking pretty much just barren rock and snow. So it was a nice change of view, nice change of pace, and a beautiful drive. The drive also took us up a very high mountain pass. I don't know the exact height, but I think we ascended to about 17,000 feet plus, and the ascent itself took almost an hour and a half of switchbacks, cutting across these different mountains, just constantly heading up, up, up. And the view from the top was unbelievable. Unfortunately, because it was later in the day, clouds blocked our view of Everest, of Cho-Oyu, of different peaks on the Himalayan range. Apparently from that mountain pass, you can actually see uh, 4 or 5 of the 8,000-meter peaks in the Himalayan range, including one which we haven't actually seen yet, which is Mount Makalu. So that was too bad, but we did actually, since you're so high up, you can actually see these thunderclouds just traveling across the valley floor. So that was pretty cool to see. I'm not sure if it was a rainstorm or a snowstorm, but just quickly traveling from east to west across the valley floor and casting this very dark shadow of mist and precipitation over wherever it was raining or snowing. So that was pretty neat. Anyway, after about a 4-hour drive, we arrived in this town called Shigar. There isn't actually much to see or do or to talk about in Shigar. It's really just, I'm sure the people who live in Shigar will hate me for saying this, but it's kind of more of just like an outpost town in between the Everest Valley and the next town that we're going to be hitting, which is Shigatse, the second largest town in Tibet. So there isn't much to do here. It is 13,343 feet. So today we actually dropped about 3,000 feet. And again, I'm telling you, the difference in altitude is palpable. You can taste the difference as the level of oxygen increases in the air, and you feel yourself re-energized with more oxygen and more energy in your blood. So that's always nice to see and nice to feel. Anyway, so that's Shigar. I'm not sure if there's anything else for me to talk about for today, so I'll just cut this short. For more information and for pictures and all that, check out my website at everestpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening in. Just for actually a preview of tomorrow, we will be heading to Shigatse. There are a number of really amazing sights to be seen there, including the traditional home of the Panchen Lama, as well as some of the largest and best preserved monasteries in Tibet. And also, we're going to try to hit a nightclub in the evening and see what that's all about. Apparently, you can go to these nightclubs where the first hour or two they do some traditional Tibetan dance, and then afterwards it pretty much turns into just a normal club, or for non-Americans, disco, where they play a combination of Tibetan music, Chinese music, and some Western music. So I'll be curious to see what happens there. Oh, and explain the word of the day, hot shower. Today will actually be the first day in 10 days that I will actually have a shower. And I'm so excited because I smell so bad. And after 10 days of not bathing in a real shower and trekking and being just completely filthy, this is going to be an absolute luxury. So that is for sure the word of the day. One last little anecdote to share with you before I sign off. This anecdote was triggered in my memory when I mentioned the nightclubs. Before I left Rongpu this morning, I stopped by the monastery again just to bid farewell and to soak in the last few memories of good times there with the monks. And while I was there, I had my MP3 player going, I had my headphones on, and was listening to a little 50 Cents in the club. And these two Buddhist nuns came up, right up to me, saw my headphones, and each one plucked an earbud out of my ears and plugged the earphones into their ears and started listening to 50 Cents. And I have this picture of these two nuns, each with one earpiece in their ear, listening to 50 Cents, and I'll post this on the website as well. But it's pretty amusing. I think they actually liked it. Had I actually let them listen to it a little longer, they had to rush off to prayer. But had they listened to it longer, I'm sure they would have started breaking it down a little bit and started dancing to little 50 Cents. Anyway, on that note, I will bid you all farewell until tomorrow. And again, thanks for listening in to the Everest Podcast.
For more information on Erick's Everest trek, as well as photos from his trip, please visit his website at www.everestpodcast.com.